So today's video is a little bit different for me. I've never really done the whole interview type content thing before, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting to have a conversation with my sister, whose entire job revolves around mental well-being. And as a creative, that's a super important thing that I think a lot of people neglect. So, hope you enjoy the conversation, and if you do, subscribe and like it.
Introduce yourself to whoever watches this and talk about your yoga practice and your experience as a mindfulness leader.
Okay, sounds good. Well, hello to everyone who's watching. My name is Grace, and this is Coda. So he's going to be our little assistant for the day. And I am a mindfulness and emotional intelligence teacher. I have been working in wellness and kind of mental empowerment for the last 6 years, but been practicing meditation for over 15. And my journey started a long time ago. And as Dylan kind of set it up, I did start in yoga and started with an embodied practice of slowing down, learning how to pay attention to what was happening in this very moment, which is something humans have become unskilled at. And I noticed in my own practice that the more I did that, the more peace and ease I had in my own life and experience outside of the practice. So that led me to studying more deeper into different meditation techniques and practices, and eventually led me to teach mindfulness. And I do a lot of work empowering people within organizations and teams, working specifically with leaders, talking about how to change your mindset, how to use the practices of meditation to motivate you to keep motivated and to maintain a sense of mental and emotional well-being. And these practices have never been, I think, more important or more highlighted than right now during the pandemic. So yeah, this is kind of short version of my story, and just excited to chat about how this can help creatives.
Well, as you were speaking, I was kind of just thinking about what meditation is to every individual, and especially as creators. I think there's like a huge misconception on what that is, or being in a meditative state versus meditation. And a lot of creators don't really realize when they're like focused in on music or creating videos or writing, they're actually like in a meditative state where they're focused on one thing and they're really present on what they're working on. And I think right now it's so easy to slip out of that state or not even be able to find it because of what's going on. So how did you first figure out what your personal meditation was? And do you kind of view your personal meditation as a traditional thing, or is it kind of like an ever-growing personal thing?
Yeah, I love that question, and I love the way you set it up on how meditation can be different for everyone. And I guess I'll just kind of make a distinction between the words meditation and the words mindfulness. So meditation is a group of practices that is a really, really broad term that can be applied to many, many different types of awareness or contemplative practices. And mindfulness, a very simple and lovely definition of mindfulness is just the ability to be present, to pay attention really purposefully to what's happening. And the reason why I love mindfulness and teaching mindfulness specifically is because it's just simple, right? It's just that. And yet the reason why I have work and the reason why people are, I think, more and more so being drawn towards mindfulness is because it's simple and accessible, yet the way of the mind is to be the exact opposite. Right. So for example, there was a study that was done out of Harvard that looked at how often people were actually paying attention to what they were doing. And I'd like to ask you, how often do you think people, on average, pay attention to what they're doing throughout their waking life? What percentage of the time?
I don't know. I mean, it feels like that answer is probably highly related to the amount of actual productive work you can do during a day, and that varies human to human. Because one of the things I did want to talk about is a feeling that I personally have, and I think a lot of other creatives have, is feeling like you're on autopilot and you're not really in control of your life. So maybe that's sort of tailored to whatever that answer is, but I would say maybe 20% of your day is when you're actually aware of what you're doing.
Yeah. And luckily, it's not that bad. I ask this in every workshop and I get like a wide range of answers. And it kind of, it speaks to how little trust we also have in ourselves. But it's actually 47% of the time throughout our day, we're mind wandering. So we're lost in thought, we're thinking about the future, the past, and we're on exactly what you were pointing to, which is autopilot. So autopilot is, neurologically speaking, it's called the default mode network. And what happens when we're on autopilot, and you like described it perfectly, where you're just kind of, you seem like it's almost like you're out of control. And what's happening is you're thinking, but most of the time what those thoughts contain they're very self-referential. So they're very much like I, and what if I do this? And what if that person thinks this about me? And what if I totally screw up my life because of this? But it's also kind of it's so subtle that we don't even notice that it's going on in the background. And that's where the danger lies, I think, because when you don't realize the things that are harming you, it's really hard to change. And so when it comes to being on autopilot, and you're constantly in that self-referential thinking, and now I'm not saying that the autopilot mode is all bad, because there is actually some creative processing that happens in the default mode network and when you let your mind wander. But there's a way, and I'm partial to the practice of mindfulness, but there's a way through mindfulness practice to kind of hack the process and to become aware when you're going off into that kind of negative spiral of the DMN, or the default mode network, and bring yourself on course. Say you're in a workflow and you're going through something and you just get distracted. I don't know, you go on social media for like 1 second to just like look up a video, and then an hour later you're still on TikTok or wherever you are looking at videos. And it's like that same kind of experience is what happens in your mind. It happens on social media, and you just kind of you can easily go into a spiral. So, like, to be practical about it, one very simple technique to bring yourself out of that default mode network spiral or autopilot is to just wake up in the moment to your senses. And it sounds so incredibly simple, and maybe some people will shrug it off and think it's silly, but I'm telling you, this is something I use most days. You just open your eyes, you move them away from your screen or whatever you're doing, and look around your room. You can even try it right now. Just look around your room and notice the colors that are in your room, the textures of the wall, the fabrics, maybe if there's something wood, the grain of the wood. And you can go through each of the senses. You can go through sound. What am I hearing right now? If you hear some distant sounds, some further in sounds, and just go through the different senses. And that actually hacks the process of thinking and mind wandering, and just stops it in its tracks, so that you can actually be present and be where you are, which is right here. Even though the mind has this ability to be everywhere else, just brings you back to this moment.
Well, that's such a good, simple thing to do. The only trick is remembering to do that when you're lost in that spiral. And that's probably the most difficult thing. Do you have ways of reminding yourself to do that on the regular? Or have you built it up as like a skill that you've developed?
It's both. Yeah. So I like to think of mindfulness as a muscle. So similar to, let's say, learning guitar or going to the gym. All right, Coda. I'll start that again. A muscle. So similar to going to the gym, working out your biceps. If you do a meditation, that's, going to the gym for 10 minutes, and the muscle of mindfulness is going to get stronger, and your ability to notice when your mind has wandered is going to improve. And similarly, or I guess related, you can also set your day up in certain ways that will inspire mindfulness or inspire you to remember or to recollect that you need to pay attention. And one thing that I do that that has really helped me is I'll set a timer for like every 30 minutes. And you can use this as like a productivity flow hack too. I think it works really, really well for me. So I'll do work for about 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. But on that 25-minute bell, I get a timer that goes off. I'll just take 3 deep breaths or 1 deep breath. And just that moment of like, okay, coming back into my body. First of all, the breath, taking a deep breath in helps to soften the nervous system that's kind of overactive when we're doing work, and helps us to activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us to relax. And then, beyond that, when we breathe, our breath, we notice our breath in our body, and our mind can be anywhere at once. It can be in the future, it can be on vacation in Hawaii, it can be in the past, regretting things. But our body has only one place it can be, which is this moment, the present moment. And so if we pay attention to our breath moving in and out of our body, it anchors our mind into this moment. So I try and do that every 30 minutes throughout my workday. And that's a technique that really helps to inspire the remembering to do the practice.
Yeah. As a producer or like content creator, it's so easy to fall into that trap. When you're working, you have to like wait for your technology to export things or render videos. And there's all this downtime you have in between. And it's so easy to pick up your phone and you just get lost. So trying to correct that habit into something that brings your mind and connects it with your body, I think is also a skill, sounds like, to develop. And it's really hard when you're in one of the most sedentary jobs there is.
Yeah. Finding the places or the gaps or the moments in your day when you can integrate these tiny little practices make a huge impact. So say you have 3 to 5 minutes while a video is rendering or something is you're getting the spinning circle of death. Just take that time to go on Insight Timer, download it, do a 3-minute guided meditation, or just put the bell on and do a short practice and just pay attention to your body. And it seems like you're wasting time. I think a lot of people think of it like, oh, I don't have the time for this. But in reality, there's been a lot of research on our mental capacity and how healthy and important it is to take those mental breaks. Because if we're constantly in the active, then we're going to eventually get burnt out and exhausted. And, at the end of the day, maybe we don't have the energy or effort to like make a healthy meal for ourselves or do the things that are going to be more productive and beneficial for our life. So it's kind of thinking about how to create sustainable practices that will help you sustain that high performance in the long run.
Yeah, that's so interesting. The way you're describing it, it kind of makes it seem so obvious that mindfulness and being present is the pillar of all health and productivity. And it's really hard thing to see. One thing I've found myself saying a lot is I've kind of forgot how to relax. Things that I do choose to relax don't really feel relaxing anymore.
Yeah.
When I'm stopping working, like I'm stopping 100% of my focus being on dreams or aspirations or goals or building my business, the things that I choose to do no longer really feel like I'm actually taking a break, which is weird. Pulling yourself out of that is really difficult.
Yeah. And what you're pointing to right there is so important, that we think that it's the external that's going to help us relax.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for most of us. Like, oh, normally I relax when I go on a walk, or normally I relax when I go to the beach. Or that, the truth is, and this is what mindfulness helps us to see more and more, is that it's not the external that helps us do that. It's really our state of being. We can be stressed out on the beach. We can be stressed out doing any of the relaxing things. And where does that stress come from? It comes from our own minds. Mm-hmm. And so this is why learning to, first of all, become aware of what's going on in your mind is step one, because most of us are walking around just living our lives, and our minds are telling us all these, oftentimes, if you really listen, horrible, untrue stories about ourselves and our lives and our worth and our well-being. And if we don't have the skill to listen, and then to also start to modulate our, I guess, belief in it, then we'll just be a captive to it, a slave to our own mind, in a sense. Building awareness is huge. And then learning how to relate to your mind in a different way, and knowing that you don't have to believe every single thing that you think. And that's like a really radical notion. Yeah. But it's powerful. I recommend anyone who's new to mindfulness or to meditation to start with guided practice. I know that for me personally, when I started, there wasn't apps, there wasn't really, any of these resources. So I just started by closing my eyes. But for many years, really what I was doing was just closing my eyes and thinking, which is not the same as practicing present moment awareness, regathering your attention over and over again in the present moment. And so having a guide, a teacher, doing a course, or listening to guided meditations is a really great place to start.
Speaking of, would you like to talk about your business and how you offer that?
Yeah, sure. Do a little plug here. Yeah. So I work a lot with organizations, businesses, with individuals who want to learn more about mindfulness to help themselves grow, to help their teams grow. And I teach a course called the Search Inside Yourself program, which was developed at Google originally as an internal training program for engineers. And so it's very like science and research based. And that's what a lot of my practices and offerings are kind of rooted in. And you can find my work at mindful-grace.com. I also do a lot of facilitation for the Copper Beech Institute in West Hartford, Connecticut. You can go to their website, copperbeechinstitute.org. And I'm also a teacher on the Simple Habit app. So another app, if you want to download that one, Simple Habit app. I've got a bunch of guided meditations and courses on the inner critic and developing patience and things like that. So yeah, feel free to get in touch through my website, or follow me along at mindful.grace on Instagram.
Word.
Whenever I post there.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. This conversation's been amazing. And I will link all of that stuff you just said in the description, and probably gonna do some more soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much.